All right, about 6:01 here. I know we're gonna still have some people trickling in, but I think we should get started. They can check out the recording if they have some more questions too, because we will be recording this. Hello, everybody. My name is Reagan Doherty, and I am here with my dad, Devin Doherty, and we have some amazing panelists who we will intro in just a second. And we are super excited to talk to everybody today about understanding fire insurance, the market changes, and just in general, what do owners need to know when it comes to fires? My family personally lost a couple homes in the recent Palisades fire, and we have been learning a lot of lessons about insurance, about losing homes in fires, and all of that fun stuff, which is not so fun. And we want to make sure that all of our clients have all of the right education they need to keep moving forward and understanding how to really protect themselves in this upcoming environment. So, moving on, we're going to get started right away. Just want to go over our agenda a little bit. So, we're going to introduce everybody, and then we're going to talk a little bit about understanding fire risk, how to best prepare yourself, and understanding the real estate disclosures and what the kind of consequences are and the opportunities are in regards to real estate, as well as home insurance in high fire zones, fire hardening, and the new state disclosure requirements. And then we're going to wrap up with a little Q&A session. And for chatting today, it's going to be my dad, Devin, and I kind of going over the real estate portion of things, as well as what we've learned from our own family's experience with these fires. Then we also have Aaron Rosen on here as well. He is an insurance agent and owner of ARC 23 Insurance as well. And he's going to be going over the big changes that are happening with insurance and what you guys need to know. We have Kelly Burkumpus on here as well. She is the co-founder and vice president of Vanguard Vents. And last but not least, we have special guest Patrick Galling, who was able to save his home in the Palisades fire and is going to teach us how he did that and show us how you guys can be prepared to save your homes in situations like this as well.
So I want to go over a few of the housekeeping rules, just kind of help you guys understand that engagement is what we're looking for. That's going to be amongst our panelists here. And by way of you guys asking questions via typing on the questions button, you'll see a button that says questions Q&A. You click on that and you can type in your questions there. We will be mostly taking those questions at the end, but if there is a question that is extremely pertinent to the exact content that we're delivering, we will possibly insert that question answer conversation at that time. We want to make sure you understand that we're not attorneys, that we are not trying to provide any legal advice here. We're just looking to give you practical advice, and that we want you to obviously stay engaged. This is a fun process, and it's not a fun topic, but it is a fun process to learn about how to avoid these kinds of issues in the future. There will be your cameras are off for the attendees. The only cameras that are on are the ones that are people that are moderating. And again, we will only be taking typed questions. So if you type your questions in, we'd love to answer that. We are going to be providing a recording to all the attendees, and those that couldn't make it or even a partial attendee, you'll be able to get a copy of this recording. And we just love for you to be able to stay present and aware and interactive the best you can. It is a very important topic. And then as we will be providing everyone, all the moderators' contact information so that you can reach out for any further connections you might need or follow-ups.
Awesome, awesome. So now we're going to kind of go over the key focus with rising premiums, policy cancellations, and limited coverage options. Homeowners face increasing challenges with securing fire insurance. So we're going to focus on clarity of the market changes, practical strategies for protecting your home, and expert insights on policy options. Our goal of this whole webinar is to equip homeowners with the knowledge to make informed decisions and to safeguard their properties.
So just to jump right in, as Reagan mentioned, we learned a lot. My wife, Judy, we've been together 37 years. She lost two of her family homes in the Palisades fire on Alma Real Drive in Huntington Palisades. And there's just a bunch of lessons that we learned. Specifically, you can see the list there. Some of these things are very obvious. Having go boxes ready if you're in a fire area, making sure that you're investing in fire protection. We're going to talk a lot more about that. Making sure that there is an HOA and a neighborhood plan for maintaining brush, and also making sure that you understand where you are with your insurance, specifically the fire insurance aspects of it, but all insurance, including your umbrella, everything else. And Aaron's going to dig into that as well. By the way, the picture you see there on that last screen, that's a picture of the two homes that burned, and the one in the middle was a home that I built for the family, and then that we sold it, and that one also burned. So all three in a row did burn there.
So now we have Patrick here. I'm gonna play this
Honda
video
engine?
for you guys.
Consider it a generator-powered, homemade sprinkler system that you hook up to your swimming pool. Golding's father purchased it from someone online last summer for $3,700. This is video of the family's test run a few months ago. At the time, they couldn't have known one of the most devastating fires in history would race through their neighborhood.
When we came back on Thursday, we were so shocked to see this tree that had caught fire and all this hillside below. And that's when it occurred to us that there's no doubt in our mind that if this wasn't soaking for 5 hours, that the fire would have lit up and burnt everything.
The Goldings ran the equipment for 10 hours after the Palisades fire started Tuesday. They drained their 20,000-gallon pool and the one next door. Their homes are among the few dozen in their high.
So there's a little bit about Patrick, a little intro. He was able to save his home. So I'm going to let you take it away from here, Patrick. Tell us a little bit about your situation. Tell us how you did it and how you're helping other people prepare to protect their homes and work as a community in the future.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the intro. So oddly, actually, the previous slide showed one of the homes that I grew up in. I grew up right next door to the family residence there. And that home that I grew up in was no longer there. So a new home was built, and that one seemed to have survived the fire. And Reagan, you had always called that one the tile home.
Yep, it was completely made of tile. I always laughed because I'd look over the edge growing up and I would be like, they're gonna slip into their pool. There's tile all the way to the pool. And now it's still standing.
It shows that construction is a real thing on fire prevention, on how they're built. So perhaps they factored that in. We don't know, but watching this video gives me some chills because it was quite an event. We worked our way up on Tuesday and were able to set up our gas powered water pump, and we had been draining the water out of our pool, but there was no fire on our back ridge when we had gone up. So we actually took our equipment to the neighbor's house across the street, and we had set up on their property. And then discussing with some fire department there, they said that they had that ridge under what they called under control. And they guided us back to our property, and they said, keep that going, protect your ridge line there. And they gave us some other advice too, to move some furniture away from the house. And basically they told us if stuff gets bad, we're going to get you out of here. So they were thankful that we had some equipment that we could set up something to help out in that case. I wouldn't advise to anybody else to be sitting there attacking any fire lines. So what we actually had done is we set up kind of a perimeter defense where we had a sprinkler system that created this wall of water, and we had a fire hose, but the water that we were taking was from our pool, so we could actually extract the water at about 120 plus gallons a minute. And I'm actually going to show what we had used during that time, and I'm going to show an improvement of what we used because we actually encountered a few design flaws. And excuse me, I'm going to remove my background here so everybody can see. And I'm in my garage right now. And so we actually have two of these fire carts. This is the one that we had used up there. And here we have a little splitter where we had two hoses coming out of it. One was run to a sprinkler similar to an irrigation sprinkler, which I will show also. And this right here is a redesigned version that we're actually making now. While all these water pumps are back ordered, it's our chance to improve on some of the products that were on the market. Now, one thing that was not shown on the social media posts, they always say social media glorifies things a little bit. We actually found this water pump and cart in the pool. And what we had discovered is that there is no way that this motor is releasing any of the vibration on itself. There's no isolation of the vibration. So the vibration transferred all the way to the cart. And with the winds, it blew it closer and closer to the pool's edge and it dropped in. Now, we weren't there at the time to see that, or else we would have seen the movement. But which by the way, the motor then would not work. So we actually had to replace it. That's why we have two motors here. When we had replaced the motor, powered it up again, we saw the cart traveling and it was kind of like mystery solved. So that is our number one redesign when we're coming out with our, what we call urban defense wildfire cart. And this was paired up with what we had used here is this giant sprinkler on this very large quadrupod, which was a bit of a burden to carry around to the neighbors and to really set up where we wanted. So what we're hoping to be able to bring is the ability to have something like this on a quick connect where you can actually set this up where you want, when you want it, without having to lug this thing out. And we can also supply this to people without shipping something this large. So our experience was pretty unique. The fact that we were able to actually go there and set up our perimeter defense. We tied up a hose to keep water spraying on the roof of a 2-story house. And we were able to leave and check on neighbors' homes. We would come back because we would always have to fill the gas tank every hour and a half or so. And so we kept repeating this pattern of leaving, coming back, leaving, coming back. And we did this about 10 hours within 2 days. And the 5 hours that we put in on the neighbor's house, which was actually upwind from us, that was where we really felt like the biggest impact was made, because we set up this curtain that just stopped any embers from flying that direction. We also protected the neighbor's house quite a bit too, with setting up that same curtain there. And what we're finding is firefighting is a community effort. And there were a couple neighbors on our street that had pool pumps as well. And if you look at the Highlands, we were on Pier de Murata. We were right where the fire started. And that particular strip of where we were was very lucky with, I guess, wind direction and the way, that the embers were blowing that day. But it takes a lot of effort at different angles to really protect yourself against these wildfires. And, they're a real scary thing. And one thing that I do want to point out is that we actually had spent more money on brush clearance the prior months than we did on this equipment here. And what we were advised is ember resistant vents, brush clearance, and using your pool as a water source to supplement any help you will get from the fire department. So we all know the fire department was spread very thin that day, and including into the night when the water reservoirs ran out. So at that point, you're pretty much on your own, and I think the point of this webinar is to enable people to be a little bit more in control of their destiny and how they're going to prevent, disaster to their property.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Super helpful for everybody. You have a great story of how you were really able to do it yourself. So we're going to kind of touch on that a little more when Kelly talks. I know you guys have a lot of kind of similarities in your process. Kelly was able to save a lot of homes with her company, and I know you guys will kind of do a little back and forth in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. again one more time so that way you guys can make sure you check out Patrick. Can you guys see that all right, everybody? And so this is his information. We'll have this all at the end as well for you guys. So moving on to the next, Devin's gonna go over a couple lessons from a fire victim. This was a friend of ours who also lost their home in the airport fire back in September.
Yeah, so our friend Chris, he lost his home in the airport fire. He was in the Lake Elsinore area, El Caruso, and what happened was they were not actually even really concerned about it initially, and it traveled very fast over a long distance, all the way from where the airport fire began in Trabuco Canyon, all the way out past Ortega Highway in Lake Elsinore. And these are lessons that our friend shared with us to share with you guys. And one of the biggest ones, obviously, is taking more photos. What he realized was that by not having adequate photos, he wasn't able to ask for the reimbursement on various things that he didn't have documentation of. So really highly documenting. He said that if he could do it all over again, he would have spent more time taking photos than collecting items. Because he would have at least gotten a better understanding of what he had there. The other thing is that he wanted to make sure that his insurance was reflecting the true replacement cost of the home and the belongings, and that if there was supplemental insurance that he was not aware of, that he would have bought, considering he was in a higher fire danger area. And then the other thing that he really wanted to point out to everybody is that there are limitations to fire hardening, and yes, you can get a fire hardened home, and yet extreme conditions can still cause destruction. So he wanted to make sure that you plan for important documents and essentials, have that go bag ready, like we talked about, medications and irreplaceable items. And then the other thing that he said that was very, very thankful about was that he had a lot of his family heirloom photos scanned up to the cloud, so they didn't lose a lot of those. Um, he also said that you want to expect the worst and not assume that firefighters are going to take care of it, that you want to make sure everything's there, as I mentioned, the digital files, storing things in the cloud, and then really starting to understand the insurance process even right at the very beginning of what you need to do to make that happen. That was the view if you look at the picture there, that's a view 20 minutes after the evacuation order of the fire, and he was 15 miles from that location where his house was burned. So it's something that affects a lot of people. That's lessons from Chris.
Now we're going to go quickly over the fire risk and disclosure. So this is a disclosure that we're going to talk about that is required in the state of California. And our wildfire season has now been extended traditionally through July through October, and it's now potentially creating a year-round threat in the state of California. So our diverse landscapes and climate conditions contribute to varying wildfire risks all across the state. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection classifies lands into fire hazard severity zones based upon factors like fire history, vegetation, terrain, and weather patterns. So this is important to know when buying a home or selling a home on where you are in regards to this. And notably, more than 80% of new properties built between 2020 and 2022 were constructed in high fire risk areas. So this is a significant increase from previous decades, and more than 80% of structures destroyed by wildfires between 1985 and 2013 were located within such zones. So it's important to see which zones you're in. Devin, I'll let you take this one.
So disclosures are basically things you need to know. They're not a contractual obligation. And in real estate, we have dozens and dozens of pages of disclosures. Again, just driving the point home here, California law mandates that sellers disclose if a property is located within a designated hazard area, including a very high fire hazard severity zone. This requirement is outlined by the Natural Hazard Disclosure Statement, which informs potential buyers of property's exposure to various hazards. Now, those Aaron's going to talk about how those disclosures don't necessarily match up to the insurance industry, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But as of February 6, 2025, California added 1.4 million new acres to the high and very high fire hazard severity zones. And properties within these zones are now subject to stricter building codes and land use requirements to mitigate those wildfire risks.
Yeah, the state is advancing Zone 0 regulations, which will require an ember-resistant zone within 5 feet of structures in designated high fire hazard areas. And these regulations aim to reduce the risk of homes igniting from wind-driven embers during wildfires, which Kelly will talk on a few of those solutions later on. The implementation will be phased with new construction adhering upon effect and existing homes expected to comply over a 3-year period supported by financial assistance programs. So this is something that's ever changing. You'll see a lot of new construction now is being built with these fire hardening items as well, which kind of Kelly and Aaron will touch on a little bit. And Devin, you want to take this one?
Sure. So how it's affecting homeowners and sellers is that California homes are required to disclose these high wildfire risks sold for an average of 4.3 less than comparable properties without such disclosures. I'll just give you a personal example. We have an area called Foothill Ranch, and insurance that was right on the edge was much more expensive than insurance that was not on the edge, and the home's value was affected by that. So please understand that this is going to come into play more and more with home value. Non-compliance can impact marketability and resale value in these wildfire-prone areas. In turn, buyers may also negotiate price reductions due to fire risk and high insurance costs, which is the case that we experienced just recently. Some communities are cash-only markets due to the lack of available insurance, limiting the pool of potential buyers. And the bottom line is that fire-related disclosures increase buyer awareness, but also create challenges for sellers regarding insurance, pricing, and required upgrades. Preparing for these challenges can help homeowners protect property value and navigate the market more effectively.
Yeah, we see this as an issue coming to the marketplace for a lot of real estate in high fire danger zones. And the disclosures are super important. So this is the new, and it's not that new, but it feels new to us because it's become so crucial recently. But the new FHDS form. Now, this is the Fire Hardening and Defensible Space Disclosure. So what you should know is that this is required for properties in high or very high fire severity zones. The fire hardening disclosure for homes built before 2010 identifies vulnerabilities like roofing, vents, and landscaping, which Kelly will touch on a little later. The defensible space compliance ensures adherence to state or local vegetation management laws. Now, responsibility for compliance may fall on the seller or the buyer, depending on the local ordinances. So you should check your fire zone status using an NHD report, which is common in almost any real estate transaction, or CAL FIRE's Fire Hazard Severity Zone Viewer. Now, sellers must disclose compliance status and provide documentation when required, and buyers should verify compliance costs before purchase. It's super important for both our buyers and sellers to educate themselves on what is needed, what type of fire zone they're in, and how they can best protect their homes for resale and for themselves on making sure that their home is ready for potential fires. So that's a little bit about the form. Now we're going to move on over here to Aaron, who is going to talk to us a little bit more about home insurance in high fire zones. Take it away, Aaron.
Thank you. All right, next slide. So there's a little bit about me. It's I've been in insurance now. I've been doing a lot of home insurance, and that's really what our primary focus is. Really for about 12 years, have my own agency for 8 years. I've got a couple employees. I have a great team. I love insurance. So let's just go to the next slide. So let's talk about some factors that will impact the pricing and availability of your policies. So premiums keep increasing. I think we all have seen that premiums keep going up. But what is triggering that? So we've talked a lot about fire claims, but there are a lot of other claims which are water related. And so right now, fire is kind of front and center for what's happened, but water claims are actually, they're typically more impactful than the fire claims each year. So while we do see fire and the fires make the news, the water claims really add up. We had a client a couple years ago, they had a $280,000 water claim. Then we had another client who had a $320,000 fire claim. But we have a lot more water claims than we do fire claims for our agency. But so anyway, things are always changing. Other items to think about are the location, obviously. And I know there are a couple questions that people already asked about, my company just canceled because I live in a wildfire zone and what options are available out there. So I'll touch on that in a moment. But, as Devin and Reagan mentioned, the NHD reports, they do not line up with what the home insurance companies will offer when it comes to insurance. The insurance companies make up their own maps, they create their own mapping systems, and they decide what risks they want to take. Next slide. So when you don't have options, there's always the FAIR plan. And the FAIR plan it's a state-run insurance company, and it's the fire insurance company. So when you think of, like, a lot of times people, when they're buying a home, they hear fire insurance or hazard insurance and home insurance, and they think they need 3 policies. But really, you only need 1 policy. But in the FAIR plan situation, you should have 2. So the FAIR plan is fire. And if you look at the bottom tab here, it says includes fire, smoke, wind, and hail. And it does not include water damage, theft, or liability coverage. And that policy, if you decide to get that other policy, which we recommend, is called a difference in conditions policy. So when you cannot find a normal policy, there is this option for insurance. The FAIR plan has up to $3 million in total coverage available for the policies. And that's kind of dissected into different coverage limits per category within that policy. So we as an agency can help. There's plenty of agents that work with the FAIR plan. My advice is do not go directly to the FAIR plan for assistance. Work through your agent, because your agent's going to know which coverages to include and hopefully tailor it to your needs. So my advice again is, if you lost your insurance, you're not sure what to do, the FAIR plan is the last stop. There may be some other options before there, but I'll touch on that in a moment. Next slide. So if you can keep your policy, you want to. My advice is, if you get a renewal, and even though it might have gone up 30%, you still want to keep that policy probably. And I know 30% increase is awful. Even a 50% increase is awful. We've had a lot of clients call us recently, and they're asking us, like, hey, my insurance went up by 30 or 50%, and we'll try another option, and then the other options are more expensive. And so we know it's not a great situation. I think the insurance companies right now are really kind of getting caught up for the inflation that happened over the last few years, and just trying to make sure that they are staying profitable so they can stay in business and keep offering policies. And that's kind of been one of the big headaches here in California, is just making sure those companies can keep writing policies and keep offering coverage to their customers. So that's a good thing. And we want that to keep going, even though that we're feeling the price hit with those increases right now. We still need those insurance companies to stay in the marketplace. So if you can find another provider, my advice is just make sure that it has better coverage at a lower cost. And talk to your agent about that. Something to really keep in mind, and we actually went through this. We had a client who called us after the fires, and her home triggered a high value home inspection because she went over a certain amount of coverage. And they did a high value inspection. We had adjusted her coverage from $850,000 to $1.1 million in coverage for her house. The inspection happened, and after the inspection, they said, no, you need $1.5 million in coverage. And we couldn't argue anything. We couldn't reduce it back to 1.1. So instead of having an additional $800 a year in premium, which she was happy with, it actually went up about $3,000 or $4,000. Long story short, we found another option for the coverage that she wanted. But just be careful because sometimes home inspections get triggered. And so even if you're increasing your coverage, just make sure you're talking to your agent so you're not passing a threshold that you're not comfortable with for having the right amount of coverage. Next slide. So, in general, yes, home insurance is higher everywhere. On average, on all of our home insurance policies this year, we saw a 30 to 50% rate increase for every customer. We saw some with 100% rate increases, and those are in the higher fire areas. And there are certain zip codes that are challenging, more challenging than others. And so it's just trying to find a company that will provide insurance for a reasonable cost, but the right amount of coverage. Something to really keep in mind, if you look at the second bullet point here, some cost saving strategies for you as homeowners. You can do some of the fire resistant upgrades. There's a new law that got passed last year where home insurance companies have to offer discounts for these home hardening items that you've done. It could be the vents, it could be clearing brush, double pane windows, enclosing eaves, all those sort of things. And Kelly will talk about those more. But the cost to actually make the upgrades is a lot more substantial than the discount. So my advice is don't do it for the discount. Do it because you want to save your house and you want to protect your home. So it's hard. Like they're teasing us with the discounts, but you might save $50 or $100 or maybe $500, but do it because you're going to save your house. Next slide. So I think this is where it's pretty important to talk about here, the current state of the market. So this has been a very challenging market. There's been a lot of things that have kind of led up to this challenging position that we're in. And I think that the Department of Insurance has done a pretty good job of trying to react and change what's happening to make it better for the insurance companies to be here. I know it sounds like I am pro insurance companies, but I'm a believer of we have to have them, and there has to be an open market and there has to be options because that will make it a more sustainable insurance market. And then I'm hoping that rates kind of settle when there's more companies in the market. So I think overall, the market will be better in 2 years is my hope. I think that prices, unfortunately, are going to go up again this year. And I know that companies that were ready to come back into the market, once those fires kind of hit, they said, let's pump the brakes again. And so I think that the options that are available right now in 2025 will be the same as what were in 2024. I think in 2026, we'll start to see some companies come back once everything kind of settles out from the fires. So as far as the impacts of the recent fires, it's kind of put a pause on those companies that wanted to come back to the market. And I think that they're still going to sit on the sidelines. I know State Farm has made a lot of headlines with what they want to do as far as increasing rates. And they're asking for emergency rate increases and meetings with the Department of Insurance. I think that financially, they're hurting. And what they're trying to say is we need to increase rates so that we can afford to continue paying all the claims and we can afford to stay in California. And California is the 5th largest insurance economy in the world. And I think insurance companies want to be here. They don't want to leave. And I think with the regulations, if the regulations can be a little bit smoother for insurance companies to adjust their rates and file for their rates, I think that will help the insurance companies stay here a little bit longer. So I just want to make sure I answer the questions, though, of what other companies are there. So we talked about there's plenty of insurance companies out there, but there are so there's companies that are admitted in the California insurance market, which means they file their rates with the state, and there's non-admitted insurance companies. So for those people who lost their insurance from the admitted companies or whoever it may be, there are some non-admitted companies where they just don't file their rates with the state, where they may accept your risk, they may accept your home, or there's the FAIR plan. And my advice again is if you have to get the FAIR plan, get the difference in conditions policy for liability, theft, and water damage. That way it creates more of a whole policy.
Thank you so much, Erin. That we have so many people reaching out to us all the time, being like, "What do I do? I don't know what to do." And that was a really good summary you left us with. And if you can, keep your plan, even if it's increasing, do your best to keep it and talk to a professional about how they can, make a good fit for you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now we're going to switch on over to Kelly. Kelly, I have known my whole life just about. And she has started this company many, many years ago, and she is helping so many people protect their homes from all of the fires going on. So I'm gonna let you take it away from here, Kelly.
Thank you, Bregan. Thank you, Devin, for having me. And hello, everybody. A little bit about me, if you want to go to the next slide. I am one of the co-founders of Vanguard Vents. The other co-founder was my husband, who is a firefighter in Orange County. So he is a local guy that just developed the Vanguard Vents based on real world experience in a wildfire 22 years ago. And so I've been doing this a long time. It's my passion. I love it. I sit on a lot of committees and boards, and I'm involved in a lot of these conversations and trends and seeing, what's happening. And I also have my wildfire mitigation specialist certification. So I'm interested in more than just the vents and just continually try to increase my knowledge about everything you can do around your home. And I'm happy to share that today. So I'm going to go over why fire hardening matters, some statistics up to date, and then some key home modifications for fire resistance. And that includes that disclosure form that Regan was talking about earlier. And then also I'll lightly touch on the insurance incentives. I think that Erin did a great job covering a lot of that already, and don't want to be repetitive. So feel free to jump in with any questions as well. But why it is such a big deal, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, especially in the past 10 years, is where we have seen, as everybody knows from the news, so much destruction. Some of these numbers kind of get staggering if you think about them. 1 of every 7 acres has burned. That's 14 million acres in California over the past 10 years, 188 lives lost, and over 57,000 structures have been destroyed, and that is just staggering. And what they've been learning after every fire is that the homes that are hardened, fire hardened, doing things that reduce your risk of burning in a wildfire, they have a 65% increased chance of survival. And this picture to the right is from the Palisades fire. And I know Regan was talking about the zone 0, how they want everything cleared out around your home within 0 to 5 feet. And I just think that this picture shows visually the exact reason why you should take that seriously. And even in the Palisades fire, the homes that had the zone 0 in place already showed a huge survival rate versus homes that didn't. And so you can see here how the embers just catch on everything that is so close to your home. Mulch, trees, bushes, we'll go over more of that. And then once that 0 to 5 foot catches fire, now it's getting into the windows. And if you don't have dual pane windows or thermal, it's going to bust those open. And it's just like this cascading effect that really starts at that 0 to 5 foot zone. And that's why immediately that was put into play, because that has been discussed for years and years. And I think it just became so evident in these last fires that he signed that into action. Next slide. And so who is requiring home hardening? We know why. And now that all these stats over the past 10 years have been coming out, where we're seeing it required is number one, insurance companies. They can offer a discount. They can just advise you, but a lot of them over recent years have started mandating it. In my own opinion, from people I know and have talked to, I think that the rate of requirement is just going to become more widespread, where it will become less of an option, but more of a requirement to do certain home hardening things, especially ember resistant vents and gutter guards in the 0 to 5 feet zone.
Yeah, and I was
Um,
talking about this with you earlier, Kelly, that we wish we would have taken the fire hardening seriously, even though the homes that we had were not even in a fire zone. So it's not even about whether it's required or not, but whether you want to keep your home or not in case something happens. It's a really good thing to keep talking about.
exactly. And we're happy to have this platform to keep, kind of educating people on this, because one thing I've seen the most out of these Palisades and Eaton fires than I've seen of any other wildfire that I've been doing it is homeowners calling in saying, why didn't we know about this stuff? Why isn't it code? Why has no one told us about this? But it's really hard. Everybody has been out there trying to educate, but it's really, really hard to get the word out to so many people. And, building codes have been requiring this stuff since 2010 for new construction, as well as CAL FIRE and local fire jurisdictions from a retrofit standpoint. But you're talking almost 3 million homes in California that were built in fire zones prior to the 2010 building code updates. So when you think about buying and selling a home, you really should educate yourself on this stuff so that as a seller, you can fill out that disclosure form correctly. And as a buyer, you know what to look for yourself to verify everything that a seller is disclosing is true. And because it will have impacts with your insurance company and in the long run, and you wanna have the best odds of saving your home as well. I think this picture is fantastic to show you really what we're talking about when we say the word fire home hardening. What does that really mean? And you can look here quickly and kind of see all the different things they're talking about, everything from what roof material do you have? Do you have debris around your skylights? Are they plastic skylights? What kind of attic vents do you have? Once embers blow into the attics and that attic starts fire, which was a huge thing that happened during the Palisades fire. Once that happens, the fire engines have to keep driving. They cannot, it takes 10 guys to put out a fire in an attic. And so they're not, during a time of chaos, going to stop and assign 10 guys to put out an attic fire. They're going to keep going and they're going to look for a home that has not caught fire yet, that has a chance of actually being saved. So you want to do everything you can to keep things out of your attic. Boxing in the eaves, these are all things that you might see in a letter from an insurance company. They already have been doing it over the years. You might see it coming out more and more. But being aware of what they're even talking about when you get that letter, it helps. And then, knowing who to call to help you fix these issues or at least get it quoted is beneficial. And again, they talk about the zone 0 here as well. Windows were another huge thing in the Palisades fire. A lot of people just had single pane windows, and I'll go over that as well. So in the home hardening disclosure form that Regan was talking about, it has 2 parts, home hardening and defensible space. I'm going to talk about the home hardening aspects quickly. And basically, phase 1 of that form says, are you in a high or very high fire severity zone, which Regan told you how you can look that up. If you are, then you have to come down and answer this section, section B. As a seller. And as a buyer, you want to be able to verify that this information is true, because the seller may or may not be aware of this stuff and might be just making their best guess. So you as a buyer want to make sure that you know exactly if it's true. So I'll go over each point here. The first one is flame and ember resistant vents. Do I have flame and ember resistant vents? The pictures on the left are what a standard vent would look like. It just looks like a black opening basically with some large hold mesh in there, kind of like a screen door, but with very big openings about a 1/4 inch wide. Maybe they have some horizontal slats going across them, but they basically act as big open windows during a wildfire. And you can see the pictures to the right. This is still shots of the inside of an attic when embers are pouring right in. So you can see how easily they just stream right into attic vents. And what's on the other side? Highly flammable insulation. And so these are all the different locations that you can walk around your house, kind of see if you have any around the base of your home, the overhangs, the rooftops, and the sidewalls. And you might even have some garage vents as well. And they might be hidden behind bushes. Do flame and ember resistant vents work in a real world fire? We've been asked this for the past 20 years, and the answer has always been yes. We have had experiences where homes have been saved in several different fires over the years. However, they've never been tested like the Palisades fires, extreme conditions. So this is just one example, and we have many of these all over the areas. The green homes were equipped with our vents back in 2019 and 2020. And once you install them, they're just in place. And then the red homes were homes that were destroyed during the Palisades fire. So you can clearly see what a difference having something simple like flame and ember resistant vents makes in your home as far as survivability during a wildfire. And again, it's all about keeping those embers from getting into the attic. That is 80% of the reason why homes burn during a wildfire.
And I know we talked a little bit about community. You can see here a lot of people have them at the same time, if you will. They all have vents that kind of prevents fire from catching between houses, which is what also saved Patrick and his family homes during the fire, the community of getting your whole neighborhood together. That way none of you catch fire and it doesn't pass on and so on. I thought that was really cool as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Number two, quickly, is Class A fire rated roof. I think most homes at this point do have Class A fire rated roofs. If you still, that would be S tiles, flat tiles, asphalt shingles. As long as they're Class A fire rated, including metal, you're good to go. No more wood shake roofs. Number three, the zone zero. And again, I'm not trying to like mention zone zero so many times during this presentation, but it is just so, so vital. And it was ever so more proved in this Palisades fire. They literally want nothing between your house and 5 feet out. That is combustible. And so I know it's hard to think about, but plants, shrubs, vines growing on walls, all of those things get attacked by the embers during a fire. They catch fire and then they just start spreading to the rest of your home. And even the fence, if you can go back one, the fence on the left, if you have a wood fence coming up to your home, you really just need to change the 5 feet of the fence that goes from the house to the rest of the fence. Just that first 5 feet from the house, change that to something that's metal or iron or steel, something that is going to be completely non-combustible. And that way, if your fence catches fire from the neighbor's house, it'll burn the fence, but stop 5 feet out. And that saves a lot of homes. And mulch is included in that too. They want you to switch out with some kind of rock or stone. Dual pane tempered windows. How do you know? The picture on the left, you can clearly look at your windows and see like, hey, this is dual pane. Do you see a gap between the panes when you look down at the bottom or the sides? How do you know if it's tempered glass? All tempered glass windows should have a little stamp on them that clearly states tempered glass. You can see that in the bottom right-hand picture. Number 5 would be the sealed bird stopping at the roof's edge. I mean, I probably wouldn't know what that meant if I didn't have this fire hardening measure, just reading that disclosure form. So I think this picture explains it all. At the edge of your roof, especially with these S-tiled orange roofs, for some reason, builders, when they built the homes, some of them sealed them up with like a metal piece that follows the contours of your roof edge line, and some of them chose not to. If you don't, then embers are going to fly right in under your roof and they're going to start building up and catch your underlayment and sheathing on fire, and they lose a lot of homes that way. And so you should cover those openings at the edge of the roof line. You can either mud it in or you can, use metal risers that match the roof. The last thing that's on there is they talk about gutter guards and covers. You can see on the left why, if you especially have trees around your gutters, around your roof line, they are constantly drying up, shedding, and that goes right into your gutter guards. You can choose to just get them cleaned out every year, and that's one thing. It's a lot of maintenance. Or you can just choose to put a gutter guard on them and you never have to think of them again. And when they say gutter guard, there's many different kinds. You don't want plastic ones. You specifically want to install stainless steel micro mesh. And these micro mesh keep out everything, including pine needles. And you want to make sure also that your actual gutter is not plastic or vinyl. And finally, if you're doing all of this work, one thing to think about is they now have what's called the Wildfire Prepared Home certifications. And the insurance companies at the bottom of the screen support the Institute for Business and Home Safety, which is who created the Wildfire Prepared Home certification. And so they know that when they see Wildfire Prepared Home certification, that it could put you in a pool then to qualify for even more discounts. And you can find out more about that program on the website wildfirepreparedhome.org. And ember resistant vents, all the things I talked about are on there as well. So if you're going to be doing that stuff for all the reasons I mentioned before, make sure that you comply and apply for this certification. And that's it.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly. This was super informative. I learned lots of new stuff. That form in the past, people look at it and they're like, what the heck are sealed stopping edges? I have no idea what that is. That was super, super informative for all of us. Now we're going to get into a little bit of Q&A. I know we've been kind of answering some questions as they've been coming up, but I want to kind of go over a couple of them with you guys as well. The first one, I kind of want to target Devin and Kelly on this one. How much would fire hardening my home fully increase my home sale value? And I think my first answer from the real estate background is it depends on where you're located and how severe the fire danger is in your area and how much of an insurance risk it has. Kelly, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, other than, you should do it, like Aaron said, just to protect your home, to save all the hassle of everything he talked about when you lose your home and the being able to keep all your memories. Besides all of that, I mean, to me, that what I see the most about is just insurability. So as a home buyer, I would imagine putting my home that if I know this home is insurable because of the upgrades, I'm willing to spend a little more to get that home versus the thought of dealing with the nightmare of constantly getting canceled, constantly having my rates go up and up and up and up. So knowing that someone already took care of those things, I would be willing to pay more for that.
Definitely. I agree with that. And I think the biggest thing is, the location. If you're not in a high fire risk zone, from a real estate perspective, it doesn't astronomically impact the value. If you are in a high fire risk zone, it has much of a bigger impact. Just like you were saying, you would pay for that protection for sure.
And one other thing I do want to add to that is the terminology for everybody is always high and very high threat zones. However, more homes are actually lost in the moderate zone than in the high and very high threat zones. And I know I've sat in many committee meetings where they're thinking of extending new construction building code language to include the moderate zones as well, because they have been seeing more home loss in the moderate zones. And you even mentioned that, I think you said that you guys weren't even in a fire zone when you lost your family homes. And so the embers, it's that, conflagration of losing whole entire communities because of the house to house burn, and people, that are way far away from the zones are losing their homes because of that. And so I think there's going to be more mention of the word moderate in with this stuff as well coming up.
Definitely, definitely. And one of our next questions, and I think Aaron already kind of covered this, but my insurance company just canceled my policy because I live in a wildfire zone. What are my options?
So yeah, my response is number one, I'm sorry. I mean, it's hard. It's insurance companies have very strict rules that they have to abide by. And so they have to give you a minimum of a 75-day notice if they're going to cancel you. So we can start with the legalities and technicalities. 75 days for the people who were just in the fires and there was a state of emergency declared by the Department of Insurance. Those zip codes are in a moratorium where their insurance cannot be canceled this coming year. So there is a pause that happens for those people that are directly affected by a fire right now. But as far as finding another option, talk to, your local insurance agent. We're happy to try and look at it for you too, if you'd like. But you always have the California Fair Plan as a backup option. But can always pursue and see what else is out there.
Definitely. That's super helpful because I think a lot of people are kind of like, "Oh, what do I do next? What do I do next?" So, one other question I wanted to um answer, which I think Aaron answered, and this might be a little Kelly add as well. What is the difference between fire-resistant landscaping and just clearing the brush and the dead stuff, and do insurance companies look at that? And I think this kind of goes back to a little bit of that zone zero stuff for the stuff close to the home. Kelly, do you want to touch on that one a little bit more?
Well, I think in the past, before these fires, I mean, Aaron can speak to it, but there was a big focus on making sure you're clearing out all the dead stuff, especially the underbrush that gets stuck underneath bushes and things. There was a big focus on that. And the 0 to 5 foot, it was kind of like, you should do it, but we know it's difficult. So just do what you can. And I think now these fires are, and with Newsom's executive order or declaration that that you have to do it now. And the difference is they just don't want anything now. They really don't want anything in that 0 to 5 foot zone. And I don't know how they're going to enforce it on every single home, 3 million homes in California. But yeah, they just really now it's kind of shifted from what I hear. They just don't want anything in the 0 to 5 feet zone, which is really, really hard. I mean, as a homeowner myself, to think about just pulling out everything from 0 to 5 feet. I don't know
Yeah,
how that's going to go, to be honest.
it is definitely crazy. I know, Aaron, you want to touch on one other kind of question about the US and the cost of insurance. Well, I'll let you take it away on that.
Yeah, so I think that something that people aren't quite aware of is, or maybe you are, in California, our cost of insurance has been below the national average for a very long time. And very rapidly, we are now higher. And it happened, it feels like overnight. And so we went from paying less to now paying astronomically high. Like our rates have doubled in just a year or two, or even less than that. And I think that what we forget to look at sometimes is we actually have the most risk and we were paying the least. Now the rates are actually coming up to where they should have been. So it's the appropriate rate for the risk is what we say a lot with the insurance speak. And so we have a higher risk here. And it's unfortunately the rates are now catching up to where they should have been.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think
painful getting there.
a lot of people aren't aware of that, and we're trying to educate our clients. This is why it is what it is, and we have very high risk where we are. One last question I want to answer before we go and wrapping up is, my home is in a high fire risk area. What are the most important fire hardening upgrades I should focus on first? Kelly, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you already have a Class A fire rated roof and same with siding, Class A siding like a stucco or a fiber cement or some kind of fire retardant treated wood, If you already have those two things taken care of, the next, I mean, right up there with them, honestly, is almost just as important. The next thing I would do is the ember resistant vents. I mean, when I look at after action reports, yes, I am a little biased because that is my company and that's what we do. We install them and manufacture them. If you ever need a quote, let me know. But it's also proven in every single after action report that one of the main causes that homes have been burned by is a lack of ember resistant vents. If you don't have them, your attic vents and foundation vents act like an open window. And during a wildfire with these 80 to 100-mile-an-hour winds, they're just getting blown completely right in there. And it doesn't take much for it to catch that insulation on fire. So that's right up there with everything else.
Definitely. And we had a question about what about wood patio covers? Are those an issue? Devin, Kelly, do you guys want to touch on that?
In my opinion, anything that's wood, and I heard this from the firefighters also who were fighting in the Palisades fire, they noticed anything that had wood attached to their structures, it was very, very difficult to save. It was just the house to house burning was just following the wood lines. And so if there's anything you can do, you can spray wood with some kind of a fire retardant. Um, every so often, I think every fire retardant or gel or paint, you can paint it with a fire retardant, has, a shelf life where it needs repainted at some point. But that's one option. Um, I think that's probably the most commonsensical option. You just want a way that just won't catch fire.
Yeah.
So.
And Patrick, you were living through this and you saw this all happening. What were, after hearing all these questions people are having, what are some of your biggest takeaways that you wish you knew prior to this, or that you would tell your past self that you wish you knew?
Well, I wish we didn't have to be told to remove the stuff that was close to our house, because the fire department literally came to us and they said, "Get all that stuff out of here. Throw it." They had us throw it basically in the canyon. And I'll tell you, I've never seen my dad throw furniture like that away. And we asked, like, "Oh, should we like put it down gently and slide it?" He said, "Throw it all now." And so there was a sense of urgency to do that. And so we were lucky enough to be there to be able to do that. And so a lot of people, they were evacuated and they weren't even able to come back up to their home to do something like that. So having that kind of stuff prepared ahead of time, and how you have all touched on having the go boxes and taking pictures of what you have inside, all that ahead of time. I mean, we know days in advance when there's fire danger. So everybody has to do their due diligence and work together to check those things off the box. And firefighting is a community effort, and it takes a lot of little aspects that come together to make it successful.
Yeah, definitely. It's the biggest thing I've learned is it's a community effort in so many ways. If we're all fire resistant, if we all, stop home to home fires, there's a lot of things you can do to get ahead of it. Well, I just want to say thank you guys all so much. I'm going to share our screen for one last thing. We would love to do a little poll with everybody who is here on the webinar. If you guys just want to answer that for us so you can help us make better webinars in the future, make better content, and keep educating our local community. As we just said, this is a community effort. So make sure to take the poll, let us know what you think, and we will share this with you as well. Devin, you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to, while they're taking the poll, I just wanted to throw out a couple things. There was a question about what cloud services are best for uploading documents and photos. And the most famous ones are Microsoft and Google. Those are by far the best platforms because they are somewhat redundant. There's a lot of other services that are effective. Apple obviously has iCloud. And so if you are an Apple user, that is a fantastic platform for taking photos. There's an app that a lot of our clients find very beneficial for taking pictures of documents that they need scanned called Genius Scan. It's a free app for both iOS and Android devices. And you can just take a picture of that, of whatever those important documents are, and they'll be scanned and it'll automatically set them up in a way that's effective. Another quick topic is there was a conversation around value. Hopefully you're seeing value in this conversation, but more importantly, value towards what you need to do to prepare your home. I think Aaron said it best. He said, prepare your home because you love your home. Don't prepare it just because of value. Because at the end of the day, yes, there are going to be homes that'll be more valuable and less valuable based on fire hardening and based on where they are physically to the fire risk. At the end of the day, though, you're looking at Patrick Galling, who saved his home because they did things that others were not doing, and they don't have the hardship that others have. So please understand that this is right now it's a voluntary process, and at the same time, it's going to become more mandated. And as Kelly mentioned, the moderate zones are also being affected. So save your home, harden your home, because you want your home there and you want your memories in your home there. And I mean, I get a little choked up because we did lose a lot of our family photos, if not all of our family photos, from my wife's family just from this situation. And yet I don't think I can scream from the mountaintops loud enough how many things were preventable just in our own situation. So this is an awareness conversation. Once awareness happens, then you can start to take action. There are small actions and there are large actions. The key here is to take action and to move forward. That's really what this is all about, is helping you guys move to that next step. As we mentioned in the beginning, we will be providing you contact information for everybody that was on the panel. And we'd love for you to reach out to us, and we could be glad to answer any additional questions. And we really appreciate you taking the time. Let's go over the poll results, Reagan.
Well, great question, because, here they are. All right. So we had a good amount of people. Pretty much everybody found this very useful. And there were a couple of questions we didn't get to, not all of them. And would you be likely to attend another webinar? Most people said 10 out of 10 they would be likely to attend. So we really appreciate all of you guys, all of the panelists here. And like my dad said, this is all about awareness. We want to educate more people. We don't want what happened to our family to happen to yours. We want more Patrick Gallings out in the world here, protecting their home and understanding that community and protecting your homes as a community is so important. And as Aaron said, it's about protecting your home. It's really about protecting your home and your memories. And I am very grateful to have so many memories growing up in the Palisades, and I'm excited to see what it becomes and excited to see how all of our memories and how we handle with insurance and all of that fun stuff changes for the future. So thank you guys so much. Again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you all panelists, and we will be sharing everybody's contact information so you can answer plenty more questions coming up here. Thank you guys so much. And
Thank you guys.
See you guys next time.
Thank you. That was
All right.
great.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
every one
you.
of you.
All right.
Really learned a lot
Bye-bye.
today. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Great
Awesome.
job. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you.